All right. Thank you guys for attending. My name is JD Smith. I'm with Arch Solar. We're very proud to be the sponsor of this session. This year we're celebrating 20 years of installing and operating in Wisconsin. As we look back and think of our partners we've had over the years, something that became clear to us was that local governments, municipalities, are extremely important. We've worked with over 24 local governments from the City Hall of Wauwatosa, Village of Bayside, all the way to Iowa County, which you're seeing here, our first local government partnership. And we've realized the importance of these systems is not only do you have an example, often local governments serve to be one of the first solar installs that their constituents can use as a reference point for how this works. We also think of them as informed partners. Now those local governments have experienced what having a solar project look like, experienced the actual implementation of renewable energy. And that leads to them being a better resource for their constituents. A common theme here is analyzing the transition to clean energy. I'm very excited to hear what our panel has to say because when we look back in the last 20 years and looking forward to the next, we see local governments being a crucial part of that and being, in many ways, the leaders. So now I'll turn it over to Kathy and the panel to get us started.
Thanks so much, JD. That was an excellent introduction to this. So I'm Kathy Kuntz. I'm with the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, and I'm your moderator today for this discussion of local governments and climate action and leveraging the IRA and all the cool things we've heard about today. And I'm going to take a moderator's prerogative to just kind of set the context for you in a couple of ways. We've heard a ton today about the IRA and the infrastructure bill. I want to just be really clear. This is a huge game changer for us, okay? It creates all kinds of new funding in competitive ways for infrastructure, but also for all of our citizens in terms of tax credits, and this is mammoth. Okay, so that's the first thing to understand about this conversation is we're standing on the precipice of just huge opportunity. The other thing I want everyone to be clear about is Wisconsin local governments have and continue to lead on clean energy and climate action. So 13 years ago, more than 140 communities in Wisconsin, that was cities, towns, villages, school districts, tribal governments, committed to get 25% of their operational energy from renewables by 2025. So we have a tradition of some leadership. Today in 2023, we have a new thing we'll maybe talk about more in the Q&A, the Wisconsin Local Government Climate Coalition. Our Dane County is a member, all of our panel members are members of that. 1 in 3 people in Wisconsin live in a community with ambitious climate goals where their community has committed to be part of this coalition to work with the state on achieving our local goals. So we continue to lead at local governments around this. What that means is that these federal funds can really accelerate local action. And you're going to hear this from the panel. You're going to hear about how that's accelerating action in our own facilities, but also how we're thinking about these new funds to accelerate action community-wide with a variety of partners. So that's the point of our panel today. I very deliberately worked with Renew to get this awesome group of panelists so that people can tell you. So what we're going to do is each panelist is going to pretty briefly tell a little bit about what they're doing in this realm of leveraging federal funding and thinking about climate action, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions after that. So we're going to have first Scott Semroc from Prairie, then Pam Ritger from Milwaukee, and then Louis Kuhlman from La Crosse, and I'm going to hand the remote over there so they can drive their presentations as we switch to a Prairie conversation.
Thank you, Kathy. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Semroc. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator, and I just turned that off. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Prairie. I've been there for about 1.5 years now, and I lead up our efforts with clean energy resources and energy efficiency, renewable energy generation there. So what I'm going to talk about is some of the projects that we're looking at through the City of Prairie as a municipality. We have currently a city of about 37,000 people in Sun Prairie. We're about 20 minutes east of Madison here. Depending on how you measure it, we're one of the fastest growing cities in the state of Wisconsin currently. And as part of our efforts, we've set some pretty ambitious clean energy goals. I'll talk about those really briefly. But where I want to start is, what do we have now? Where are we? So right now we have 2 solar PV systems. In 2018, as part of a roof renovation reconstruction, we installed a 66.6 kilowatt system at City Hall, and that's currently operational. And then as part of a expansion of our west side building, we installed a 121 kilowatt system. We're in the process of designing a 400 kilowatt ground mount system at our wastewater treatment facility. And we're also expanding our library, almost doubling the square footage, and building a new Sun Prairie utilities facility, both of which will have solar. So that's our current solar PV assets. Those are the primary renewable energy systems we have on site. The main effort here with these is to understand where we can put our facilities, where our assets are. So with that, and the IRA bill that Kathy mentioned, obviously we're all tracking that closely, what resources are coming online through both the BIL and IRA. It's just an incredible time to do some planning and some opportunistic design work for our facilities. So in our strategic framework, the big goal we set last year was by 2025, 100% of municipal operations will be powered by clean, renewable electricity generation for all municipal operations. That includes buildings, vehicles, anything that we can control. I want to point out there's control, influence, and awareness. Everything that we can control, that's the goal that we've set for the city of Sun Prairie. So how do we get there? Essentially what we've done is we've created some procurement policies, we've done some strategic planning, and we've made it embedded into our processes. So the first one I want to mention there in that first bullet, anytime we touch a roof, we're going to look at solar. We are going to include an alternative bid as part of our procurement processes to include a solar PV option and a vegetated or green roof option. We need to get pricing. We need to ask for it if it's going to happen. So that's the first thing that we look at. Anytime we touch a roof, anytime we build a building, we're going to look at solar PV. The second thing we have to do is budget for it. If we don't budget for solar renewable energy projects, they're not going to happen. So including that in the capital improvement plan, and what I really want to highlight for all of our communities, all of you working out there in your cities, is go back home, look at your capital improvement plans. If they don't have solar in them, start making some phone calls to city council, to city staff, make sure that they're budgeting for these systems, because otherwise you're not going to be able to take advantage of the direct pay mechanism, all these IRA resources coming online. So I have an image there that's a PV watts calculator. You can do this yourself. You can go online. It's an NREL tool. You can just map the size of the roof and it'll tell you your estimated system capacity. Reduce that by 20% because real world situations will change production. But that's where we are today. So moving quickly here, I'll talk about some of our strategic partnerships. What's our objective? I think my goal personally and the city's objective is to put solar PV on every single roof space, square foot that we possibly have. We're a municipality. We're not going anywhere. We don't buy or sell buildings. City Hall is going to be there for a while. It just makes logical sense in addition to all of the energy efficiency, clean energy investment benefits. So energy efficiency first, renewable energy next on our facilities. That's looking at all of our municipal roof space and installing solar PV. That's the end game. That's our top level objective for municipal facilities. So we look at things like location. Is it a roof or ground mount? What's the economics of the system? How do we pay for it? Who owns it? All of those good things. I could talk more about that in the Q&A. What are some of the challenges? We're kind of limited. We have net metering up to a certain system size. We are required to go through public construction. It takes some time. We have resource constraints, staff capacity, things of that nature, but planning is super important. So that's our primary objective as the municipality. For the community, it's to share resources. We've got our own municipal electric utility, Sun Prairie Utilities. It's a great asset. We're a joint action agency member of WPPI Energy. They have 51 total communities in their service territory. Focus on energy, always a great resource. Technical resources, incentives. You got Madison, the group buy program that we actually, our Sun Prairie residents are eligible for that program. And most importantly, inflation Reduction Act, making sure everybody's aware of what's available, when to file on their tax forms, what they can buy, how much it costs, how much energy it'll save them, all of those good things. And finally, all of the different resources, making sure that our residents and businesses are aware of those things. And then simply put, now's the time. We got to do this. We got 30% direct pay mechanism. We're still waiting implementation guidelines and strategic planning efforts, but we need to put these systems in. The picture you're seeing is our wastewater treatment facility. We're citing 400 kilowatts of solar. I wish it was more. We're looking at the space north of the facility for future deployment. We're looking at installing a public works campus here. So simply put, call to action. You got to budget these systems. You got to specify these systems in your procurement processes. You got to ask for them. You got to call city council. You got to call staff, and then celebrate them, highlight them, bring people to the site, talk about them. What's this doing for us? How is it saving us both demand and energy? And it's locking in pricing for long term. So with that, that's what we're looking at Sun Prairie, and I'll turn it over to Pamela.
Thanks so much. You're a hard act to follow. It was really impressive how much planning you've already done. My name is Pam Ritger de la Rosa. I'm the Deputy Director of the Milwaukee's Environmental Collaboration Office. I've been there since May. And I'll be talking a little bit about kind of in three specific areas how we are already taking advantage of federal dollars to advance a lot of our climate and equity goals and what we're looking to in the future. So, and I should give a little bit of background here. In 2019, our city council and the county board of Milwaukee County came together and created a task force on climate and economic equity. And that timing was really great and ended up being really great for us to be able to do a lot of planning and building our recommendations. Hoping for a future where we would have tons of federal resources coming down. And so that timing ended up working out really well. So we came together again in 2019 and then into 2020. We know what happened, everything with the pandemic. So, we did an initial report out, continued planning through 2020. But kind of with kind of one of the first pieces of federal legislation that we really took advantage of was the American Rescue Plan Act. And that we kind of used that in our city to advance a lot of the recommendations that we're developing and that have continued to develop with creating healthy, energy-efficient homes in the city of Milwaukee. So just with some background, again, when we came together, I chaired the Green Buildings Work Group. I see Jeff Stone was on that group. We had about 40 people joining together on a Zoom call every 2 weeks throughout 2021 to come up with different recommendations in 3 different subgroups. Commercial buildings, residential retrofits, which is what kind of this recommendation came out of that, and then as well as new modular housing to help fill a lot of the vacant land that we have in the city of Milwaukee and come up with new energy efficient, lead safe, healthy homes for people to live in. So just some of that background. I think a lot of people are familiar with the concept of a high energy burden. There is a significant energy burden in the city of Milwaukee, and that does run along racial lines. There are a lot of black households in the city of Milwaukee. There are tracts of the city where people are paying 13 to 19% of their household income on energy. We mapped a lot of that. We also saw an overlap, again, with areas of the city where we have high levels of lead poisoning. And so we started one of the big kind of ideas that that started to come together was this idea of upgrading deteriorated housing stock. And making it energy efficient, making it lead safe, ideally addressing asthma triggers and different things like that. And another goal coming out of kind of that climate and equity planning was also finding lower cost solutions for new construction on the 1,700 plus buildable vacant lots throughout the city of Milwaukee. And then we also had, our goals that we set for the climate and equity plan is 45% emissions reductions from our 2018 greenhouse gas emissions greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Milwaukee, 45% GHG emissions reductions by 2030, and then 0 by 2050. But along with that, our kind of twin equity goal was to create a significant number of good-paying jobs, particularly focused around employing communities of color in the city of Milwaukee. So again, another piece of this background or part of our planning was developing the workforce to manage the significant upgrades that were needed to make these transitions. So again, in 2020. I'm trying to remember the exact timeline, but the city of Milwaukee had a decision around kind of the first tranche of that American Rescue Plan Act money that was coming to the city, a significant amount of money. And so kind of out of that, because we were already doing this climate and equity planning, we decided to start talking with our alders around these different energy efficiency, climate goals that we wanted to advance, and we wanted to use some of that federal money to do that. So, one thing that we're already making use of, $2 million from those ARPA funds, is going towards, again, as I mentioned, a holistic approach to housing renovations by integrating lead abatement, energy efficiency, as well as healthy home improvements. And that is already underway. The City of Milwaukee and the City of Milwaukee Eco Office and the Health Department are working with a contractor out of Maryland, the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, which has helped different communities throughout the country to integrate energy efficiency with lead abatement. The next kind of piece of funding that we were able to secure from City Council through ARPA was $1 million to develop this healthy, energy efficient modular homes concept house. $3 million was to go to supporting the contractors and workforce development, again, to make these transitions and upgrade deteriorating homes. And then kind of just a side note, we're also supporting a lot of partners in the city, including the Social Development Commission, which is our local CAP agency. And you're using IIJA funds to support energy efficiency and electrification readiness in 135 homes, as well as money for some heat pumps as well. So that's just some of the work that we're doing in terms of our healthy, energy efficient homes. Next, we do have a renewable energy goal for the city, kind of similar. It's, I think we're hoping to go to the 100% renewable, 100% of city energy being provided by renewables. But right now, the goal that has been on the books for several years now is securing 25% of our energy by 2025 from renewable sources. The city plans to meet this goal through solar development on city buildings and properties, as well as through the purchase of energy through a renewable energy tariff that's currently being considered at the Public Service Commission. That, again, hopefully we're already looking at kind of what the cost would be to provide from 25% to 100% of the city's municipal electrical needs from We Energy's Renewable Pathway Program. And that's something that, again, we're still kind of talking through and hoping to get up to 100%, but at least 25 to meet that goal. We will also be leveraging federal funding. I think a lot of people here are familiar with the saga in Milwaukee of trying to put 6 different solar installations on a number of our city buildings, but and using kind of what ended up being perceived as a third-party financing arrangement. We were blocked from interconnecting all of those projects, so we had to kind of scale that back and do that solar on just 3 of those different buildings. So we were really excited when the IRA came out because, kind of that whole argument is now moot because all of those credits that we were hoping to secure can come directly to the city. So we're going to start with moving forward with those 3 installations that we were prevented from doing in previous years. Again, creating local clean energy jobs through these programs is a priority. So the City of Milwaukee is intervening on that Renewable Pathways docket right now to try to secure try to ensure that as much of that energy and as much of that solar development will employ people from the City of Milwaukee, local employment. We also right now are preparing an energy savings performance contract. It's something that we've been looking at for a while, which will obviously look at energy efficiency opportunities in the 105 city buildings that we have, but also to include solar development. And then, we're also listing in the RFP that I'm drafting right now, making sure that any ESCO that gets selected for this project be supporting the city, know as many of these incentives to help us secure these goals, and so that we're really looking forward to getting that RFP out and looking at our options. And then in terms of electric vehicles, Mayor Johnson, who's our newer mayor, he really has a priority to transition our city fleet to electric and other low-emission vehicles. And so along those lines, I'm also working right now on an ordinance to look to transitioning all of our city vehicles to to EVs and lower emitting vehicles. So, again, we're really looking forward to the IRA's EV incentive. As those incentives for light duty vehicles, the $7,500 for new vehicles, as well as $40,000 for heavy duty electric vehicles. Again, those incentives can come directly to the city of Milwaukee. So we're really looking forward to advancing that transition of our municipal fleet through these incentives. And I think I've gone over my time, so I will leave it at that. I'll pass it to Louis. Thanks.
All right. Hello, my name is Louis Kuhlman. I'm the environmental planner for the city of La Crosse. La Crosse has a population of about 52,000 people, and it's the largest Wisconsin city on the Mississippi River. It's in the heart of the driftless area, so the water and the bluffs create a lot of recreational opportunities, so that's one of the things that draws people to the area. We have two major hospitals, UW University, a private university, and a technical college. One of our sponsors, Train, got its start there, and also it's the headquarters of Quick Trip. Another fun fact is that is in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the world's largest six-pack, and it's where the LaCroix sparkling water originated. Before I talk about our partners in energy stuff, I want to mention that, like the other communities you've heard, we've actually have gone through a energy savings performance contract, and we've done about 9 facilities, mostly looking first at energy efficiency, so our lighting, heating, cooling, and air handling, and then also adding solar panels to those facilities. We've made over $9 million in investment and are projected to save $11 million over the life of that repayment. Another major project we're working on is our wastewater treatment plant renovations. We're hoping to generate more biogas there and connect the city facilities nearby on Isle of Plume into a microgrid. So hopefully we can get a energy innovation grant for that. Nearby on Isle of Plume, also we have our transit center, which we got a federal grant to purchase 2 electric buses and electric vehicle charging station. So, and then in terms of planning, we've recently passed our climate action plan. It's got sort of an interim goal. We passed a resolution to be carbon neutral by 2050, and I wanted to have a plan that was more concrete, so more immediate term. So we've got the overarching goal of our climate action plan is to be reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 60% by 2030. And right now we're developing a year 1 implementation plan that'll include how to take advantage of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, so the reason I'm here is to talk about our Partners in Energy program that we've worked with our energy provider, Xcel Energy, on. I'm not sure if it originated in Minnesota, but it got to Wisconsin through Minnesota. So thanks to the those communities for pioneering it for us. La Crosse wasn't the first city to take advantage of this. Eau Claire and Menominee, and I think now Altoona are also in the Partners in Energy program. But basically, it's a way for communities to work with their utility on an energy plan. So it really, I used it as a framework to sort of set up, to kind of do some pre-planning almost for specifically focus on our energy portion of our climate action plan. So besides energy, we're looking at, water and trees and all that stuff. So I wanted to focus on our energy planning, and working closely with our utility really helped us do that. So we had the Minnesota Center for Energy and Environment as the consultant, and then worked with a number of different staff people from Partners in Energy. Oops, I'm sorry. There we go. As I mentioned here, it's a 2-year program, so we spent about 6 months planning and then 18 months with the implementation. Both processes, we have a memorandum of understanding with the utility to say, okay, we've accepted, or we're going to help you plan. Here's our roles. Okay, you've got your plan, so those goals that you set out, the strategies that you set out, we're going to help you implement them. Another nice thing is Xcel Energy also has a carbon neutral goal, a goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. So we're already on the same page there. Let's see. Go on to the next slide. This kind of this is sort of just general planning timelines and illustrations, but it's similar to most planning efforts you'll do. Again, what I wanted to reiterate is that it was a strong collaboration with our utilities, so they were involved all along the way. And one of the things, I don't remember the source of the grant, but they got some funding to reduce the cost for us, so we added on an electric vehicle implementation, or electric vehicle strategies in our plan as well. So that was a nice bonus for that timing. So some of the things we accomplished, as I mentioned, the EV planning, promoting our focus on energy resources, the energy saving packs, a home audit guide. So again, Xcel Energy is a multi-state utility, so they've already developed a lot of these resources for their other communities. So working with the consultant and with us, they've adapted these resources to be Wisconsin specific and then specific to our community. So that was one of the benefits of this program, is just, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're able to share resources amongst those other communities. They also have like special programs like the free business energy assessment and rebates, specifically for Partners in Energy communities. So that's one of the things we took advantage of, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome, terrific. If we can have a round of applause for them. Told them they had to summarize cool things really, really fast, so we had time for discussion too. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand. We have a mic we can take around to grab those. I'm going to ask a question first that somebody put in the app about, so how can local governments work together to share resources for planning and development around clean energy kind of thing? And I do have the Local Government Climate Coalition logo up there to prompt you all. Anyone?
I can speak on a few different things. I mean, I will steal anybody's resolutions or ordinances that I can find and modify them for me. I mean, government stuff is public. I don't know. It's not copyrighted, so I will. That's what I look at. So it's a good opportunity, working with other communities, hearing what they've done, and then looking at their policies. Like Middleton's TIF policy had sustainability requirements, so I'm copying that. And then, our Partners in Energy program, we have, materials from other communities. And then also just, La Crosse is not an early adopter. So working with communities like Milwaukee and Madison and their respective counties, Milwaukee and Dane, they're much more on the cutting edge. So anything I can do to help support them be successful, that's just more ordinances and resolutions I can steal. So that's one of my big things, benefits.
Anyone else want to?
I'll add, I agree completely. I'm a professional thief, and all these people are my accomplices. My position did not exist a year and a half ago. We have to rely on our other community partners to help us get here, be it ordinances, procurement policies, strategy, EV adoption plans. Eau Claire's really stands out to me. They did an excellent job of just, where do you put EV charging infrastructure? How many units do you need? What's the rate of charge? All we do is borrow from each other because it's an efficient use of resources. WLGCC is a great example of that. We have working groups that peer communities sharing. How do we get this done? Anything from how do we specify LED lighting requirements? What do we need for equipment X, Y, and Z? That's all we do is coordinate on these efforts, because instead of 14 different communities or 100 different communities going their own way and trying to figure this out, if we set similar goals, we'll have similar strategies, similar outcomes. So I think coordination is just absolutely critical, and it's an efficient use of taxpayer, ratepayer resources, making sure that we're using what's already out there. And then when we do go for grants for innovative concepts, we can do it together. Can we look at bulk purchasing requirements? Can we look at different strategies that help us get there further? But first, we always have to ask, what's out there right now? Can I use it? Can I borrow it? Can I help our community achieve it that way?
Yeah, I really have nothing to add. I mean, I agree. I think looking to other communities in the state around the ordinances and the policies that they're planning is usually where I start, because it's going to be a similar legal framework in terms of, what power do we have per state legislature to pass certain policies, and what do we need to keep in mind, but also just looking at, like, I love, searching through the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, website, and just learning about what other communities are doing. I have a call tomorrow with LA because they put EV chargers on their streetlights, and I want to learn how do they do that? What did it cost? What are the considerations? So that's really a lot of how we learn. But definitely having WLGCC there is so valuable, just because of that local framework, and who are the contractors that you work with, and who are the different local resources that we can all share or rely on.
Yeah, because we'll be able to tell you what to do with the snow around the EV chargers. LA probably won't be able.
Exactly.
Looking at snow.
Exactly.
There you go. There was a question out here.
So I have a question about building codes. So I'm from Powered Up Baraboo. We're a nonprofit in Baraboo. We're a town of about 12,000. We're trying to promote the clean energy transition. We don't have a sustainability committee in the city yet, but we're trying to do this work. And one of our action teams, the Homes and Businesses team, is exploring building codes. So our fire inspector is on that team, and she has talked about how the building codes are just very minimal in terms of energy efficiency. And so I'm interested in finding out whether you would recommend, or if you're familiar with any advocacy around building codes. Is that a fruitful kind of avenue to explore? So that's my question.
You want me to do this one? I can do this
Yeah,
one
yeah.
because
Please
I'm
start.
willing
You
to
can
tell
start.
the story. So in Wisconsin, only the state government can set building codes. The legislature passed a law that local governments cannot set building codes more aggressive than the state code. So we have the state code. Our residential code is approximately 2009 code, and the other one is, 15, thank you. So they're not where they should be. When independent groups look at our cities and how well they're doing on energy efficiency, Milwaukee gets downgraded because they don't have ambitious codes, even though they can't set codes. Right. That means that one of the things our coalition does is advocate with with the department, DSPS, the professional services, the folks who set the codes, saying, you have to help us make the codes better. Increasingly, one of the things that's happening under the infrastructure bill is that for some grants, you get more points if you have the latest code. For some of the emergency management competitive grants, you get more points now if you have the most ambitious code. So our communities are suffering from but it's not a thing we can address locally, but as a coalition, we can advocate, and we've had really effective and I would say fruitful discussions with the state agency saying, look, we can bring experts to the table to help you upgrade these codes. I'm cautiously optimistic that the code proposals we're seeing are headed in the right direction. And it's, okay, I'll just tell a couple of years ago, Pam's boss in Milwaukee, Eric Schomburger, was on a radio show, and they were asking him why Milwaukee got the grade they got from one of these things, and could the state do anything to help? And Eric said, well, yeah, if they had building codes that weren't crap, we wouldn't lose all those points. And when he got back to his desk, there was a call from DSPS to, like, let's talk about those. You know, we're part of what we can do as local governments is point out where we need more state cooperation on this, and that's a little bit what we think we need to do to accelerate some of these issues. I mean, communities are going to lose money because we have low codes. There are going to be grants that go somewhere else because you can't say you have good building codes. And we need our legislators to understand that so we get better codes passed.
Can I ask an obvious question? Oh, Louis, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to add two things. I know in some communities they just have sort of advisory stretch codes, like Eau Claire has, I think, a net zero building code. And then also in situations like we're in where we can't go beyond, what you can do is anytime you're giving municipal money, you can make that a string, or a string attached to it. You can say you need to meet these more advanced requirements. So anytime you're giving out money or like certain, I don't know if you can do it.
TIF, you mentioned the TIF.
Yeah,
thing
TIF for sure. But yeah, anytime you're approving something, like, can you add a condition to make it more energy efficient?
Other questions?
While you're thinking of your questions, I was just curious, how do you join this? And how does a municipality join your climate coalition? And what's your goal? Like, how many municipalities would you like to have on that board?
So we have 1 in 3 people in Wisconsin right now. I want 1 in 1 because that would make it. But so and I should have put that up there, our website is WLGCC.org. And yeah, you could reach out, and I mean, there's no cost to communities. This is grant foundation funded to help us organize ourselves. So the other thing is, between questions, I'm just seeing this and remembering, Brady, I want you to stand up because I want people to. So one of the things our local government climate coalition did is, all of our communities work with Focus on Energy. And we said, hey, Focus has a person who's their liaison to the utilities. We're local governments. We have big goals. We want our own liaison. That's Brady. He's our new liaison. We are super excited because now when Louis or Scott or Pam or Kelly or any of the other members of the coalition have a question, I do this all the time. I send Brady an email, hey, who at Focus can I talk to about this? And Brady gets me an answer, and it's lovely. And that's what we can do as a group, kind of thing. We can make the systems work better for us.
And I think there's ways, I mean, if communities are interested, they can tune into the monthly meetings. I think ultimately we'd want, if they decide to join, it'd just be a matter of passing a resolution. And again, you can just steal what we have for those.
Regarding working together, is there, I get all of you folks have paid jobs at your city. A lot of smaller communities struggle with this, and I think there's an opportunity for creating energy districts or creating a shared position to allow for an energy manager or someone to kind of float around smaller communities to help them with these projects. The small communities are not getting grants because they don't have anyone to write these grants. And they're also getting, they're missing out on a lot of money that could come to these rural communities because they just don't have the expertise. I know, with WPPI in Sun Prairie and some of their communities, they have a dedicated energy manager, but a lot of small communities do not. And so I just want to see what your thoughts are on helping to create energy districts or helping to create, energy manager districts within the state.
I can start with that one. I think it's incredibly important that you ask that question and that we share. Just as we take, we need to give. And I think what I've started to do with our team in Sun Prairie is clear documentation. It's as simple as a website. It's as simple as a microgrid feasibility research study that we were grant awarded and Slipstream worked with us on, and it's on our website. And take the numbers and do that in your own community. It helps a lot. Just get those resources in the right people's hands. Take out the numbers, put in your own templates. Shared resources are incredibly important for those smaller communities, the rural communities that don't have dedicated staff. You need templates, you need shared technical guidelines, you need procurement criteria, you need grant support. If we need to write letters of support, if we need to reach out and say, hey, are we partnering on this? Why is one city applying for 2 EV chargers here and one is applying for 3 over here? Can't we all get together and apply for 20? So that, I think, is my best answer to that, is reach out to us. We want those smaller communities coming, and every one of you go to your smaller community or your larger community and say, hey, city staff, are you aware of this? Are you talking to folks? How are we coordinating? Because I bet if they don't know, they'll be interested, and if they do know, they might not know all of the different partnerships or organizations. So that's our goal here today, is sharing all these resources and making sure all the communities know there are grant opportunities. There's one due Monday. You might be tight on that deadline, but there are a lot of others out there that we should be sharing those. We're competing, but we're also partners. So you need to know. I learned everything from these folks standing up my position. When Stoughton's standing up their sustainability committee and their sustainability coordinator, call me. Let's talk. Let's get you going, because that's the way we make this happen. So it's a good start. I think we need to do more. I like the idea of energy districts. I'd want to hear more about that too, but that's, I think, how we're going about it.
Next year, we'll talk about energy districts. Woohoo!
Right along that line, has your group reached out to the recently formed Office of Rural Prosperity? It would seem that that would be an agency that, was, created to try to jumpstart rural Wisconsin. I would think energy would be a huge part of that. And, those are very small communities, 3,000 to 4,000. So it just, hearing what you're doing and their focus, it seems like a natural marriage that you would be communicating and join forces on grants and resources and so forth.
It's a great idea. Yeah, we haven't, to my knowledge, I'm not sure anybody has, I'm certainly aware of that office and some of that initial work, but yeah, it's a great, and I think, as we have, you can tell from the map, we have a lot of the bigger communities have goals and are in as we think about these smaller communities, a lot of what folks are saying is really good stuff for us to think about. How do we have within our network resource support that can bring folks along?
Actually, I'll piggyback on that since I don't see any other hands. So you guys have talked a lot about planning and implementation, efficiency and renewables. What about workforce development? And does that have a role in this climate coalition whereby you're finding ways to get the tech schools or even the high schools to start funneling people into these jobs that we're creating?
I don't know that that's been a discussion. I mean, that is something that's happening at La Crosse, but more for like affordable housing. We have both our high school and technical college working on building homes. But yeah, getting the training that we need is going to be important, and especially I think for taking advantage of the federal funding that we've been talking about. Like, do we have enough auditors? Do we have enough contractors to do the work that we're hoping to do? So it can be. I don't.
The answer is we don't. We don't have enough people to do the work. So, and this gentleman's made me think of it because WEDC is a lot about training and workforce development, and so maybe that's an opportunity to partner. And you guys know your communities, so where in the community, just an extension of like how we have to start putting these pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a really huge issue in Milwaukee. We have, really high levels of unemployment in certain parts of the city and in certain communities. So we do have a whole, section of our climate and equity plan around a green jobs accelerator. And so we're having a lot of discussions with our local workforce development agencies, Employ Milwaukee, trying to have more discussions with the unions as well. How can they expand their apprenticeship programs, and how can we support that? Working with the Milwaukee Area Technical College, they're coming out with more and more programs around, HVAC control program, training technicians and things like that. But it's difficult because I think there are a lot of training programs, and then people finish the training programs, but they don't necessarily have a job to go into. And a lot of the employers, the training programs I think are doing a fine job, but they might not have that employment experience directly related to what that employer, that contractor is doing. So that is something that we're still kind of working through, recognizing that the city, obviously we want to be supportive of that and we want to move that forward. We also can't do all of that ourselves, so it's like, how do we bring all these different entities together and try to figure out what are the missing gaps and what are, how can we move this forward? But it's a challenging issue, definitely, but something we're trying to kind of work out.
And I'd add to that, I think of two things. I think of our technical colleges and building out electrification contractors. That's probably the number one thing I think of, is getting people excited about being an electrician and then understanding there will be work for the rest of your life with the clean energy economy. We need folks in homes, in businesses, electrifying and just doing electrical work. We have a shortage of trade workers, and we have a massive demand surge in electrification services. So we need to build that pipeline. I think approaching the technical colleges as city municipalities, as conveners, would really do a good job moving that forward. I would also think of the school districts and building energy curriculum, education, sustainability training. We did a Sun Prairie area school district training where we actually just came in similar to this and talked to students, and they got super excited. We have an e-gauge now in our Royal Oaks Elementary School. They can see live energy usage. It's awesome. They get super excited. They start turning lights on and off. That could be a future electrician right there. I mean, that's how you build the pipeline. So I think engaging the school district, engaging the technical college, but we all kind of need to do it together and get people excited about that. You may not need to go to an undergraduate degree. You might go to an electrician school and become an awesome electrician and be working on the clean energy economy. So we need more electricians is my comment.
I think, well, looking at the time, we're a couple minutes over. Appreciate everyone staying. Thank you so much. I mean, I guess my closing thing is local governments are already getting it done, and, we're going to lean into this federal money and make amazing things happen, and hopefully all of you join us in your communities to do that. Thank you.